I'm here with Michelle Heupel from James Cook University. Michelle, thanks for taking the time to meet with me.
No problem.
Michelle, you are one of two authors on a recent paper in conservation biology called Science or Slaughter, a paper that we discussed a great deal on Southern Fried Science. Can you tell me a little bit about the paper?
The paper is discussing the need for lethal sampling of sharks and what the benefits of lethal sampling are to science, management, and conservation, and discusses some of the issues around developing non-lethal techniques and the use of those techniques and making best use of scientific samples, but also talks quite a bit about what the ethics are around lethal sampling and how much of that we should be doing and those types of issues.
And what is lethal sampling important for? Why do we need to be killing sharks for research?
We need to be killing sharks for research because the sad reality is that at least 50% of the shark and ray species that are currently known are considered data deficient, right? So we don't have any basic biological data about those species. And unfortunately right now the only way to do that is actually to kill some animals and cut them open and find out what their reproductive condition is, find out use their vertebrae to find out their age and look at their growth rates. And these are things that we just don't have the tools to do any other way right now. So it is important for us to understand. We need to know how long these animals live, we need to know how fast they grow, we need to know what their reproductive patterns are, because those are the key things that managers and conservationists need to make accurate decisions about whether populations are in trouble or not. So it is really critical information.
You mentioned in the paper a growing trend among shark scientists, young shark scientists, that they are unwilling to participate in lethal shark research regardless of the background just because it's lethal shark research.
Yeah. It's something that we're experiencing in our labs. We're having students who say that they're not interested in doing any research that involves lethal sampling, regardless of the species. And there are a lot of species that aren't of conservation concern that we can and should be doing this research on. So I understand that it's an ethical issue for people, but we also need to keep in mind that our job is to be scientists, and if this is the best most efficient way to get this information, then we should be considering keeping our minds open to the options and the things that need to be done in order for us to help conserve and manage these populations.
All right. One of our readers in a comment on the post about this paper compared this lethal shark research to the Japanese Institute for Cetacean Research and their claim that they are doing scientific whaling. How would you respond to that comparison?
I think comparisons to the marine mammal world are difficult because there are a lot of very different issues. For example, there are some marine mammal people who can't lethally sample their animals, and what's happening to those folks is that they're having to get all of their stomach contents and all of their vertebrae and all the biological tissues they need from animals that strand. So now they're getting all of their data from sick animals, which makes it hard for them to understand what's happening with healthy animals. So I think, there are reasons for us to go and do these things. Whether you believe what the Japanese are doing is ethical or scientifically valid, I think is a personal opinion, and people have different opinions about that, and they are, in my mind, two very different issues.
Another reader asks why you can't just get the information that you need from the tens of millions of animals that are killed, targeted by fishermen, and only the fins are used, or animals that die as a result of bycatch.
Right, and that's one of the things that we actually talk about a little bit in the paper, and there are people who are doing that. There are a whole suite of scientists who get all of their material from commercial fishing boats, and we talk about that in the paper, that that's a source that people really need to be looking at, particularly if they have those fisheries active in their areas and they're catching the species that they need. That's absolutely a way to cut down the pressure on those populations, and I certainly think people should be considering those options, and many of us already are.
Other than this paper, what does your research at James Cook focus on?
My research is largely focused on movement migration patterns and ecology of sharks. So looking at how they use habitat, how much space they use, where they move through time, and how they react in large part, how they react to environmental change. So when something in their environment changed, does it cause them to move? Can we work out what those triggers are and how that will affect these populations in the long run if we continue to change the environments that they're living in?
You were one of the lead organizers of the recent Sharks International Conference, which I attended and thoroughly enjoyed. Would you consider the conference a success? How many people attended? Where were they from? Things like that.
I think the conference was a huge success. We had 226 delegates from 21 countries, which was a huge turnout, and we had everything from post-grad students to experienced researchers to lawyers, resource managers, conservation advocates. We had a really broad suite of people there, which was fantastic because it gave us a chance to educate and inform a whole bunch of people. We even had some people from the general public who bought registrations and came to the meeting just to learn about what was going on around the world with sharks. So yeah, it was a huge success, and I think for me one of the measures of success is that several of the people who attended the meeting are now discussing trying to have another one in 3 or 4 years' time. So people really thought it was that useful that they'd like to try and organize another one. So that's amazing for me.
Excellent. Is there anything else that you would like to say about the Science or Slaughter paper or your own research or anything?
I don't think so. I think
All right.
we covered it.
Well, thanks a lot for taking the time.
That's all right.